Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Fitz. Welcome to a different kind of video on this channel. We're going to be doing a top 5 video today, going full sellout mode. And this will be regarding the VGC 19 season, specifically the Sun series. Now, if you haven't heard anything in the past week or so, the VGC 19 rule set came out, and for the next few months in the Sun series, we're going to be playing with no Megas, where you can use 2 restricted Pokemon, Pokemon like Kyogre, Xerneas, and other covered legendaries, Mewtwo as well. And you cannot use Z Crystals as well. And then progressing further into the season, Moon Series will allow Z Crystals, and then the Ultra Series will allow Megastones, Z Crystals, as well as Primal Groudon, Primal Kyogre, Mega's Rayquaza, and Ultra Necrozma, which will be big meta shifting Pokemon. So basically in this format, there aren't going to be like crazy hard hitters outside of the restricted, since you can't Z-move. So you'll be relying on the old way of getting damage. And you also will be able to use all types of weather, where Primal Kyogre and Groudon are going to be dominating the scene, but as you may have seen early in the format, Kyogre has still dominated just with Drizzle, but things like Abomasnow might come into play at some point. So basically this video will be top 5 Pokemon to look out for in the Sun series specifically. A lot of them are support mons, and Pokemon that haven't been showcased as much in like the previous season or VGC 17, basically because they fill a niche role in this format. So things like Ludicolo aren't going to make this list, since we've seen a lot of it, we know what it does, and it'll be helpful again in this format. And we won't see any of the restricteds. We might do a video on that in the future as well. I think there are some really interesting ones, and I think some of like the B or C tier, not as well-known ones, can still put in a lot of damage, since they do have some insane stats. So looking outside Kyogre, Xerneas, and Duskmane Necrozma could yield some interesting results. So this is kind of for myself as well in prep for Philadelphia. I have like a team, kind of, but I haven't tested on Pokemon Showdown. I'll probably test it on BattleSpot when the format is released on the 4th of September. So hopefully this is coming out around then. You can play the series for yourself on Pokemon Showdown, which I'll probably link below as well. And if you don't know about it, create your own team and try it out. So coming in at number 5 is a old VGC 16 Pokemon that's pretty helpful in supporting your main offensive Pokemon, and that's Crobat. So Crobat's main thing is that it has inner focus, so it's able to get Tailwinds off first turn almost without fail. It's in a speed tier with Tapu Koko and Mewtwo, which both of them threaten it. So running max speed might be paramount, and even then it's possible if you get unlucky that you won't be able to get a Tailwind up, but it won't take too much from Fake Out. It'll still be able to move against things like Incineroar and Ludicolo, which we've seen a lot in the early format, as well as Hitmontop we might see more of. The Poison Flying type is nice in this generation. It's able to, in theory, Brave Bird or Cross Poison some of the Alolan Guardians, even though it won't be doing a ton of damage. Sludge Bomb's also an option. Haze, it's also a very good Pokemon for Xerneas, as it has access to Haze. Unfortunately, it outspeeds Xerneas, so it can do Geomancy and then outspeed Crobat the next turn. So as long as you get the Tailwind up, you can Haze it. It can Super Fang, take half damage from pretty much any Pokemon. It has Roost Taunt, U-Turn, Quick Guard, and Snatch, all kind of low tier techs that can definitely surprise your opponent. So definitely a good option, definitely an oldie, but we haven't seen it in a while. But with the way this format is pretty quick, and you want your support mons to do everything they can to get you to the end game, and hopefully faint quick enough that lets your restricted mons come in and win. You don't want to be left alone with Crobat at the end of the game, because you probably won't win in like a 1v1 or a 1v2 situation, unless it's very situational. So that was number 5. Coming in at number 4 is going to be Gastrodon, which actually was on the World Championship team in VGC 18, but it's still more of a niche pick. But because of that glory that Gastrodon achieved, and because of Kyogre's dominance in this format, Gastrodon might see some play. Early on, we've seen a lot of bulky grass types, so right now Gastrodon's in kind of a weird spot, and it doesn't have access to Z moves, so it won't be hitting incredibly hard until it gets a Storm Drain effect. But it is something that could be looked out for, especially when paired with something like Groudon, where it's kind of your rain answer, maybe in addition even to a grass type, since Kyogre is so centralizing at this point. So can be very interesting Pokemon. Can also ground spam is always good, usually in most generations, and without Landorus kind of running the show, Gastrodon could do a lot of damage to some unsuspecting teams that comprise of things like Incineroar, Duskmane Necrozma, and other Pokemon weak to ground. So I don't think it's like the worst thing ever. Can also take on things like Tapu Koko well, other Groudon matchups, which you probably won't see a ton of, and maybe the occasional Zygarde. Ice Beam should chunk it pretty well. So it has, Scald, Earth Power, Ice Beam, Clear Smog. Recover might not be as useful in this generation as VGC 18, but still something to consider. I was kind of iffy on this Pokemon, but I'd like to see it more as the Sun series goes on. So we'll see about that one. Coming in at number 3, I mentioned it earlier, is a Weather Setter, Abomasnow. Basically without the heavy rain and the heavy desolate sun, Abomasnow will figure in to this series, mainly because it can underspeed pretty much any Weather Setter, maybe besides Torkoal, which I haven't seen yet. But it can set up the Hail, break Focus Sashes, and a Pokemon that you don't see a ton of. You see a little bit of them in like the VGC 18 or 17 series, where there's no restricted Pokemon, but it's not like a very it's not the most popular Weather Setter. Usually Tyranitar is, but Tyranitar is much weaker in this format, where Abomasnow gets a little bit of a boost. So it can take on Kyogre and Groudon, that's its main calling cards. It cannot Mega Evolve in this series, which is bad, but it isn't the worst thing ever. It can work well under Trick Room and provide some offensive pressure to pretty much any team with Ice and Grass, which is a solid offensive typing, not the best offensively, and Incineroar, the prevalence of Incineroar might hinder this Pokemon, but as long as it has the right support, it should be able to do good damage to them. So it can hit on the physical and special side. Usually in VGC you'll see a special Abomasnow with things like Blizzard, Giga Drain. I don't know if it gets Grass Knot, but it also can hit with Wood Hammer on the physical side, and maybe an occasional Ice Shard, kind of like how Aegislash can pack Shadow Sneak, which has failed my team before. Abomasnow could also run the kind of rogue Ice Shard that a team might not expect. So very good pick if you do like slower teams and slower games. Abomasnow could definitely be a solid choice to take on some of the centralizing Pokemon in the format. At number 2, we have a pretty interesting Pokemon that was introduced in the 7th generation and didn't see practically any use, very little use in the VGC 17 and 18 series. It actually gets better as the formats expand and more Pokemon are allowed, due to its supportive nature and the Pokemon that are running wild at this point. And that's Serena. So Serena has a few calling cards. First one is its ability, Queenly Majesty, which along with Dazzling, of what's that water Pokemon? You see it on screen right now. Can picture it, but I can't say it. And basically prevents all of the allies from taking priority moves like Ice Shard, which we just talked about, Fake Out, Feint, and a few others. So really good ability, actually better than Tapu Lele's Psychic Surge in that this still protects allies that are off the ground, Levitate users and Flying Mons. So that includes Yveltal. So a very common core that I've seen popping up is Serena helping out both Kyogre and Yveltal on the same team. Pretty good three-man core and building around that. Grass, Serena's able to take on Ludicolo and somewhat Ferrothorn in the early format. So it's a very good mon. It also has access to Feint itself, so if you want to get off a big hit and ensure it, you can Feint a Pokemon and then clean it up with a big knockout from things like Kyogre. It's usually been run with Scarf Kyogre since all priority moves are blocked. You don't have to worry about Fake Out, but that may change as the season goes on and people find more optimal items for Kyogre. Serena also has very high attack stat, and that allows it to get off big power whips, high jump kicks. I think it has Play Rough, but that's probably not going to be used. And it can use Trop Kick, which is really why it wasn't used in 17. Power Whip. There wasn't access to Power Whip for Serena in 17, but then in 18 with Ultra Moon, Ultra Sun, it got access to it. So Trop Kick's a supportive move where it can lower attack and deal damage at the same time. So kind of interesting. I really like Serena. It was the first shiny I got in the 7th generation, and I think it has a niche in this format and probably will continue at least until the end of Moon series, and I'm undecided on it on the next series. But any Feint users, it also has Helping Hand. Can't believe I forgot about that. So you can threaten both Feint and Helping Hand, which is kind of a cool combination. So it falls a little prey to 4 move slots, and the item is kind of iffy in terms of, usually you would think Assault Vest right off the bat, but might want to run Protect, or maybe not. Maybe just Feint, Helping Hand, and then 2 attack moves. So, interesting one. And then, number 1, personal favorite, and I think this is a Pokemon that's being slept on quite a bit, is actually Weavile. So, Weavile in 18 did not do very well, primarily due to the prevalence of Intimidate, especially once Intimidate Incineroar was released. Its usage drastically went down. I saw it at like a local right as Intimidate Incineroar was coming out, and it did not do well. It usually ran things like Icium, Z move, and it has access to Feint, Fake Out, and Feint isn't like the best in a non-restricted format, but in this format it can allow your big Pokemon to knock off pretty much anything and KO. So Weavile has 2 abilities, Pressure and Pickpocket. I actually like Pickpocket a lot in this format. I'm thinking Weavile might not need to even have an item, since it can basically pickpocket every move in the game besides Seeds that are activated on first turn. There are no Z moves, there are no Mega Stones to need to worry about that you can't steal, but it can steal things like Power Herb Xerneas. That's the main one. You could Feint Xerneas, you could Fake it out, or you can just knock it off. So a lot of choices there, and you can basically steal any other kind of Scarf or choice items, Life Orbs, Berries, everything that kind of makes other Pokemon good, kind of takes away from them immediately. So can be a very annoyance kind of Pokemon, and the Feint Fake Out is known by a few Pokemon, but I think Weavile is probably the fastest one in the format. I guess Zeraora might have those 2 moves as well. But it's in a great speed tier where it challenges or at speeds. Things like Talonflame, Greninja, Nagana, Nadell, Salmon. Well, we don't see Mega Salamence. I guess you could run Noivern as well, but it's in that kind of speed tier, and it's only losing to things like Mewtwo and Tapu Koko in the speed department, and Crobat. Mewtwo will need specific coverage moves to take out Weavile, so that can be some mind games there. And yeah, I didn't mention Taunt, but Icicle Crash and Knockoff are the two solid stab moves for Weavile. I think it's going to be really, really good, especially once things like Scarf, Kyogre die down a bit. You can steal its item first turn, but you'll probably get knocked out in return, so it's not like the best strategic advantage. Best use of Weavile. You could also run things like Focus Sash and then steal items afterwards. I was just thinking, don't run an item slot due to Xerneas powering up and then not having an item, and then you're kind of up a creek at that point. I think there's a lot of other cool mons. Let me know in the comments if you've stumbled across any of them. I think things like Staraptor, I think things like Unburdened Pokemon in certain terrains can be interesting. Like I said, Staraptor, like Final Gambit Pokemon as well, although they can't take out all the restricteds. Things like Xerneas and Yveltal have crazy high HP. They can do a ton of damage, or like actually pick up knockouts depending on the HP spreads of things like Kyogre. So early season Final Gambit Pokemon can be pretty good because people are usually running default spreads, very fast teams, and you can get down to like a 3-on-3 situation very quickly where you might have taken out your biggest threat to your team and able to clean up from there. So let me know if I missed anything. Hopefully you guys like this kind of format. It went a little bit long, but yeah, let me know if you want like a little bit of a shorter video. I don't know how top 5 videos work on YouTube. I don't really watch them, but if you enjoyed it, let me know, and maybe we'll see more of them in the future. So thank you guys all. Have a nice day, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye bye.